of the Organization of African Unity, which then metamorphosed into African Unity. 1963 was the year, all the way to 2025. We're talking about African Unity. This year's theme was revisiting our history, shaping our future. We'll get to talk about the details, but also to ask the critical questions about African unity and whether or not is this another charade, or whether or not we are really committed to it. I've been asking very simple questions as to how we are so rich in terms of resources as a continent, and yet with all the fine brains that we have on the continent, we are not able to have a single currency, for example. How rich we are as a continent. In Africa, the gold production, for example, in Ghana and South Africa alone caters for the entire world, literally. And yet, you look at the life of the people in the areas where these resources are mined, and you can clearly tell that, look, Nkoye mama, Nkoye papa. We're talking about justice for African and Africans, yeah? And we'll get into that conversation in a bit, but I want you to think about it. How do you feel today as an African, knowing that we always commemorate this day, we always talk about it, we always hold the big conferences, the big speeches, we have an objective that says that we should all come together. If you go back to, and maybe I need to go back to it, the core principles of the Organization of African Unity. At the time in 1963, when Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's firstborn, was championing that whole initiative, what was running through his mind at the time, does it still run through the minds of the people who are the helm of affairs today in the various African countries, whether it's the Eastern Bloc, the Western Bloc, the Southern Bloc, or the Northern Bloc, whether they be Anglophone or Francophone or Lusophone? These are questions that we must ask ourselves. How is it that Nigeria has so much oil, right? Ghana has so much salt. Nigeria will not buy salt from Ghana to, process, or if you like, refine its oil. But they will travel all the way to Brazil or some other place to go and find salt to come and refine their oil. Wouldn't it have been cheaper trying to deal with us, next door, so that we also know that at the end of the day, if we can't afford oil, then we can go back to them and say, we give you salt, so give us oil in lieu of that, and so on and so forth. Then we talk about cocoa production. Do we add value to our cocoa? When are we waiting to add value to it so that we don't go rushing for Obroni chocolate? Then you go to the northern part of Africa, you talk about the nomads, and you talk about the meat production, you talk about the cattle ranches, and you talk about all the things that we have. And yet we still import meat from Obroni Chrome. So now you tell me, if we're talking about sustainability and African unity, it's just about paperwork and wearing suit and tie and an air-conditioned office and sipping on some nice coffee and munching on some cake? Or it's just about really the bread and butter issues? Because it trickles down to the very least. On the continent, I can tell you that we don't seem united. But then when we travel out there, okay, and we meet ourselves, then we see that, we are together. As soon as we come back onto the continent, hey, I'm Ghanaian, you're Nigerian. Hey, keep your distance, let me keep my distance. I mean, where does that spirit come from, Helen?
It's very interesting, like you said, when we are out there and we realize that systematically, the system is not in our favor so much, so we get together. But dare I say that even on the continent, whenever you go to conferences, especially targeted at African unity, tourism, collaboration, and business, you realize that we are really one people. Yeah. We have a lot of similarities. Like, we understand ourselves. There's some cohesion, or there's one understanding, some kind of pride that we have as Africans. a lot of the time I put the blame on our leaders.
So why can't we bring that down here? So that I see somebody from Nigeria, somebody from Togo, somebody from Ivory Coast, somebody from Burkina Faso, somebody from Niger, somebody from Benin, somebody from any of the African countries, Egypt, name them. Why can't we bring it down so that, because even on the African continent, those who are light-skinned see themselves as a better version of Africans than those of us who are dark-skinned.
That is true.
And then you find that those who, based on what educational qualification they have, they assume that, well, I'm a better African than this other African. And I've never gotten it. Look, the Organization of African Unity, founded in 1963, was a continental organization of African states. That's one. It was to play a key role in promoting decolonization, because at the time, most of the African countries were colonized.
That's right.
Pan-Africanism and political cooperation among African countries or African nations. The OAU was replaced by the AU in year 2002. At the time, J. Kufuor was the president of the day. And then this was done in Addis Ababa, May 25, 1963, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. There were 33 signatory governments. We can get into the countries if you so want. But these were the objectives: promote self-government, respect for territorial boundaries, social progress through Africa or throughout Africa, work to eradicate colonialism, promote political cooperation, and support African liberation movements. We have a whole structure for it. There's legality, etc. Let's talk about the countries that signed onto it. There were 33 countries that signed. Right now, we are literally all of us are together. But are we really together? You go to South Africa, and there's xenophobia beyond apartheid, where the blacks and the whites were at each other. Now the whites have gone, the blacks are in charge, and then black men get there, and there's xenophobia. It just doesn't add up to me. I've been trying to think about it, and I say, look, for more than 63 years, we've been OAU. In fact, it used to be a holiday in this country. We celebrate it. We say, oh, Charlie. Now heading, and then what? At the end of the day, what? Yesterday we finished the day. What?
Did we even remember?
The rights of Africans and the place of Africa. The opportunities. I mean, if you think through it clearly, you will find that there are people on this continent in Africa, not just in Ghana, in many parts of Africa, whose only worldview is some small village where they are. And that's it. They don't see beyond that village. They don't know anything beyond that village. The only time they come across anything global is when somebody, a tourist, comes around, even that it is just for a few minutes or maybe hours, and then they are gone, and that's it. Meanwhile, we are the youngest continent in terms of the demographics, the population.
That's right.
We have the youngest bloods on this continent. We have all the resources. We don't lack brain power and capacity and acumen. Look, if you give an African person money to run a business, right? Tabletop business, you see how they progress quickly. So it means that we have the capacity, we have the potential, we have what it takes. Why are we still stuck in this hole?
Maybe we don't recognize that we have such enormous power, especially if we decide to come together. I always reference COVID-19 and how the entire continent was clamoring for a cure, and I thought, can't we get together?
You know at the place at Legon, Noguchi,
Yeah.
and then Wakpi at Legon.
Yeah.
You know, they were among the first to have done the genome sequencing,
That's correct.
which eventually got the whole world to do the vaccines, produce the vaccines. So if we as Africans here, were able to know what genome sequence, and the experts will tell you what it is. They were able to find out that, if you add this one to this one, do this one to this one, you will be able to get the vaccine. And then we sat down and still watched, and Obroni produced it, and we were all rushing for it, and we went to buy it. I'm trying to understand. Like you're on the platform behind a lectern for a quiz. A general question is asked. You know the answer, but you're hesitant. Somebody answers the question. I knew it. That's what we have been doing.
Right.
That's what we have been doing.
Is it a lack of confidence?
I think so. I want to suspect so. But the African is not a timorous person.
At all.
The African actually is.
We are?
We are. I think our problem as Africa is summed up in that song that says mental slavery or something like that.
That's Bob Marley's song. Redemption song.
Redemption song. We have had so many opportunities as a region to break away from that slavery, that yoke of colonialism. And Kwame Nkrumah put it well when he spoke about colonialism, not just in terms of the political governance of the country, but also in terms of the economic development of the continent, in terms of the education of the continent and all of that. And if you read the writings of Kwame Nkrumah, all these are things that he spoke about.
In fact, there's a book that Kwame Nkrumah, that lawyer Bright Akwete made me read, Towards Colonial Freedom.
Towards Colonial Freedom.
That's one of the books that lawyer Bright Akwete, that's my uncle, he made me read that book.
Exactly.
At a very early age, I think after JSS or so, I read that book. It was not so huge, but he gave it to me.
A lot of his books are not
more like literally
reader friendly.
Yeah, reader friendly, and the writing is okay and all of that.
And the brofo is enjoyable. You can almost always follow with keen excitement. For those who love reading, you see, when you read to a certain stage, at a point you begin to see it like a movie. You are reading and it's like in your head you are watching a movie.
Picturesque.
The point is that where we started off as a people, very interested not just in domestic affairs, but also in the affairs of our neighbors. So Ghana was not just concerned with gaining political freedom.
Right.
It was also concerned with the freedom of other African countries.
That's right.
Ghana was just not interested in the economic freedom or liberation of its people. It was also interested in the liberation of other African countries. And that is why that famous statement that we all like to refer to, that the independence of Ghana is meaningless until it is linked to the total liberation of the African. This is the spirit of that statement, that as a people, as a region, we do not stand alone.
Right.
We are closely knit. We are tied. Our freedom is tied to each other. And our political organization is also equally tied to each other. So if you go into the concept of the African Union, then started as OAU,
right,
you would realize from the objectives you have even read that it was not just a matter of Ghana trying to be domineering.
That's right.
Or a matter of Ghana trying to show off that we had people, political orators. We had people who could rattle English and give fine speeches and all of that. It demonstrated clear, workable approaches to debalkanizing Africa and ensuring that Africa as a region was that region that could stand up for itself in terms of trade,
right,
in terms of education, in terms of political leadership. So going back to the beginning and traveling through time up to where we are now, we ask ourselves, where have we reached?
You know, one of the things that I read in there, which I didn't agree with, was the fact that we're going to respect the boundaries that were created by the colonialists. Before Obroni came, we didn't have all those boundaries. And I've always quizzed, Helen, I've always quizzed and asked myself, You know the history we were taught in school? It always begins from when the white man came.
Yes.
Have you thought about it? The history that we're taught in school, it always starts from when the white man first came to Africa.
That's right.
So before the white man came, were we not existing? And whose idea was it to put into our history books that the history of Africa started like a drama or a theatrical performance? It started when the white man came. So before the ships came, what were we doing? We were existing, we were living. We were there.
We're living. We had our own writing systems. We had our own history.
We had education system, our own legal system, our own everything.
You see, if you are familiar with the structure of traditional authority, where the chief is up there, beneath the chief or around the chief is the council of elders.
That's right. Who the chief does not appoint.
No.
The chief comes to meet the council.
Automatically ascend to their various roles.
That's
from
right.
their various clans.
Yeah.
So clan heads find themselves into the council.
So I'm driving a point. Sorry, I'm holding on. So this is our current council of state. It is the president of the day who comes to say, "Oh, Helen, you former chief justice, eh?
That's right.
I can work with you. Come and advise me." You former CDS, eh? You too, I can work with you. Come.
I'm former music player.
Former IGP, eh? Then, so the president, who is now literally the chief in our context, now selects the people to advise him, and then we will go and vote for some. Even those who vote for, it's just a
Who tells you the people you vote for are people you actually vote for?
No, that's. I'm just trying to say that the leader now decides that, oh, Helen, you former chief justice, I can work with you. Come and advise me, right? And even advise, I can take it or not take it. But in our traditional sense, the chief, he comes to meet the elders, and the elders have the duty to advise him. And he cannot say, "You have advised me, I won't take it." He will be destood. Please continue.
Yeah. So if you look at that arrangement, and yes, so chief, council, within the court itself, the chief's court, various officials. So you would have the chief warrior,
right.
You would have the one in charge of, so treat as foreign affairs, chief linguist. Then the role that, emissaries. You also have emissaries.
Right.
But there's an official of the court who is responsible for relations.
Right.
There's an official for the court in the court who is responsible for interior.
In fact, even protocol. Dicro,
so
and all those people.
We lack nothing. Our history has been complete before the ships docked. Now, when the ships docked, we decided that the titles we had were not sweet enough. Meanwhile, the same roles they play. But we decided that the titles we had were not sweet enough. They were not refined enough. So, so there's something called Foreign Affairs Minister. That's sweeter. Let's use that one.
Let's use it.
There's something called Interior Minister. That's forget the Chief Warrior. CDS or
CDS is let's use it. National Security. Yes, let's
National
have it.
Security. What we forgot was that the people who brought that thing on their ship to us, they also have a certain culture within which context those titles, those names, and those designs fit in perfectly. And that in our culture, you cannot say that as chief, you are appointing your own advisors, as Johnny has said.
No.
You cannot say that as chief, it is your duty to appoint your chief of defense staff. Because culturally,
there's a family that
produces the chief of defense staff at every turn in your history.
Yeah.
So these are the nuances that we threw away. And if you look at the structure of OAU, now AU. You find that there's an organ called
security.
No, not even that one. There's one responsible for culture.
Yes.
There's one responsible for culture. That organ should have been given the priority that it deserves, because it is one of the things that we lost, our cultural identity as a people, which eventually pushed us into all of these troubles that we find ourselves in.
Six, you know, if you look at the British monarchy, for example, they maintain Minister for Foreign Affairs. I mean, they may not call it Minister for Foreign Affairs. They maintain all those Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Secretary for this and Secretary for that. They maintain all those ones. But they have never shied away from the fact that they have a king or a queen at every single time.
At all.
They have L for this, Duke of that, this for this, that for that. And so they maintained that, and then they still had what they pushed down our throats. We think that we should throw away everything that we have and try and fit into their narrative so we can please them. And that's where the problem is.
So you realize that very recently, I think the 2020 election, we started talking about the role of our chiefs in our body politic.
Right.
I think Bawumia was promising them the power to, was it to hear cases or to be able, to receive some of the royalties from the sale of land.
Right.
Okay, so that if this land is under the trust of this chief, once it is disposed of, you get to retain something from it.
Taliba, how is an assemblyman more powerful than a chief?
Than a chief.
How?
It's sad.
How is an assemblyman more powerful than a chief? How?
Back then, you couldn't enter a community without going to the chief's palace.
There are clans.
Now, even as journalists, when we enter communities, who is the first we call?
Assemblyman. See, there are families, clans, and then you find an assemblyman more powerful than the chief.
Yeah. It is sad.
I don't understand.
It is sad.
But there's a whole generation for whom this conversation about chieftaincy and it means
nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, all what we are saying for them.
So we should blame ourselves.
No, it is because we woke up one day and somebody who is very wise decided that something that we used to call cultural studies, which we used to study in school, should be yanked off our books. Somebody who was wise enough woke up one day and thought that something that we call music and dance should be wiped off our books. So you find that the new generation's appreciation of music is suspect. That is why we got to a point where we had Azonto, kwa, 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 just one chord, right? Maybe a do, mi, so one chord, pa, 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 pa. They'll play that throughout the song, and it is a hit. It won't be a hit to me. I'm not sure it will be a hit to
the ear.
It will be a hit to an Amma Lawson or a Beatrice Abbey.
Sorry, I'm trying to get you, Johnny.
No, so I'm saying that if you understand music and you learned music like we did, right? Music and dance, you know your tone, semitone, and all those ones, quiver, bass clef, treble clef, blah, 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 chord progression, all of those ones. If you learned it then at JSS as I did, and didn't even major in music, you will not appreciate somebody playing.
When we're forced to just pass exam.
Yes, somebody playing one note, right? One note, say a so or la, and singing over it and say that is music.
At this point, Abia, give us a Zonto song.
Give us one of those ones. Give us. No, this one is not one. This one is two. La, so, la, so, la. You look, there's just one. Maybe a sacco. One of the early sacco days one. It's just one. And that's it. Because somebody woke up one day and said,
if I sing the song right now, you people will laugh. So
it's okay. Somebody woke up one day and said music and dance over and done.
What do you have against the evolution of Ghanaian music?
No, I don't have.
It's not the evolution of Ghanaian music.
I don't have anything against
it. It is the sense of direction that we have lost.
You think it's a regression?
In our education, Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because at a point we decided to take away all the subjects that would probably orient us.
Sixes, I'm coming. Listen, one note. This one.
Oh, wait for the voice to come in.
3FM Sunrise.
Helen, so this one is music, eh?
It is music.
We even
It's
have
a hit,
song,
man.
we have a song where the person say freedom.
Freedom.
Shatta. Freedom.
My name is Shatta
You know, the
Wale.
first time I heard the song, I will dance like a butterfly. Dance like that song
No,
was
I mean, those
it was
ones-
first unleashed on us on the University of Ghana campus.
For me, I think that we need to go back to the basics.
Music and dance.
What do we teach in the schools?
Environmental studies.
Yeah.
Life skills.
Yeah.
Um,
Life skills is another. You know,
life
life skills.
skills,
Did you do life skills in school?
I did life skills.
Life skills were taught how to sew,
Sewing.
and back our
Cooking.
own
I did,
buttons,
yes.
Yeah.
right?
This is even in
Home
morning,
science.
Home
This is even in
science.
Morning Star class 6. They taught us how to make, I think, fried rice,
Yes.
basic things.
And then sponge cake and all of that.
Yes. So by that age, yes, latest by JSS 1, all of us, both
So-
girls
so
and
you are
boys.
We have removed
self-sufficient.
all of
Yeah.
these things, and now people are at the universities, Legon, KNUST, UCC.
They can't cook. They have to
can't
order food.
cook. They are constantly ordering food.
Look, let me tell you. Let me give you an example.
We've lost it.
So when I went to the UK recently, I went to a coffee shop, bought beverage. I don't like coffee, so I bought. You know, I don't like coffee, so I bought.
That's right.
I bought tea, regular tea leaf, as they call it here, and then I bought some omelette, and then some sausage and some salad and some stuff. By the time I finished, it was like £15, maybe 18.
What a breakfast. Whoa.
Now,
breakfast.
Now, the egg was not well done. Helen knows what I'm talking about. Like they fry them, they don't
No,
fry them.
it was well done.
No.
Just that according to the Ghana standards.
No.
Because you have to tell them, please, I don't want to see any yolk.
No,
I don't
I
want
don't-
sunny
no,
side
no way,
up.
John.
No, the lady
Johnny,
asked.
relax.
The lady, no, I'm
Wait,
coming. The
Like,
lady.
when you buy Indomie, you see the way they fry the egg.
Yeah.
They literally bend the egg. You
Yeah.
can see the black patches
no,
on the one
That's
that
not what
that's
I'm
the one
talking-
you're
that's
talking
not what
about.
I'm talking about.
In the UK, we don't do that.
So
that.
so the lady asked me. So the lady asked me. This is the first time, you know, I had landed in there. The morning, the morning I landed, straight went to Dagenham, and then I saw this coffee shop. I said, Charlie, at the hunk. Make I just enter, go find something chop. So I entered the place. The lady says, "Okay, do you want the egg well done?" I say, "Yes." They bring the egg. I take.
They ask you whether you wanted it well done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because I enter and I see somebody they eat it on way the yolk they run all over the thing. I say no. So he asked me, say I want it well done. I say yeah. Then he bring the thing, I tear the thing inside. That thing they run. So I call him, he say, "Oh, this be well done." I said no. But I had paid about my 15 to 18 pound for it. So when I left, using my life skills, I went to the next two shops. It was an African shop. They had red onion, they had chili, they had this, they had that, they had that.
The force.
So me, myself, I buy the things. The things I buy, you know, catch 12 pounds. I bring,
you go
I bring
spend
come
15
house. I cooked rice, right? Plain rice. I cooked sauce or stew, as we call it here. Egg stew. Let me put it that way. I had 10 fish. Then later in the afternoon, I put the raw rice we left. No, I put for the stew inside. I take do jollof.
Nice one.
No, but that's
Or Sophia in
but that's-
London.
but that's how to prepare jollof.
Yes.
You have your sauce first,
Of
and
course,
then you put
you're
it.
right.
But then I had cooked the stew, right? And then I had my plain rice. I finished eating. In the afternoon, I wanted to change variety by same rice. I just picked the raw rice we left. Not be the cooked one, not be the boiled one. The raw one. I take put the stew inside. I do
That be all.
If it jollof be that.
But you added small water.
Yes, no, taste to you understand. But the whole point is that Imagine if I had not gotten life skills, and based on that, I had not generated the interest to be in my mother's kitchen or my auntie's kitchen or wherever it is that I had learned at some point in time. I would have been stranded. And every morning, I will go to this place, tell them I want the egg well done, and they will still give me flowy egg, and I can't do foko
At all.
and I will still pay. Because if I don't pay, Koti go come. You see the point?
Yeah.
So we have disadvantaged the whole generation, and we are doing more to add on to
But
that.
you know, we have to be part of that blame.
I don't run away
Our
from the
generation
blame.
has to be part of that blame, because what we learned, we are the parents today. What we learned from that life skills and from that music and dance,
Right.
and from that cultural studies, we used to have that as well. Cultural studies.
Right.
We used to have PE times.
PE. We used to have technical drawing.
Technical skills.
Technical skills.
We had all
Yeah.
those things. So yes, the older generation, they decided to, redesign the curriculum in the way that doesn't favor our kids, the ones that we are raising. How are we, who have learnt it, impacting on that narrative at home to change it? How?
When the child that has not tucked in his shirt is now trying to beat his teacher who is telling
him to tuck
that
in?
this is not how a
I give up.
gentleman
Collect
looks.
your flowers.
Dress well. Says, gentleman,
I give up.
Dress well. I go to the barbering salon sometimes, and then I sit down. I see like somebody sits in the chair. He has a bushy hair. Then he tells the barber to just sit, boss, to shape, mommy, just to shape. So he came to the barbering salon to tear shape. And the hair that he brought,
They almost beat me one day at the bar.
the hair is, so I asked the guy, I asked the young guy, didn't you cut your hair? He said, oh, boss, would this be how they like him? I said, but where do you work? He said, oh, I know they work now, but they send application around. Now I asked him, so as you they send application where nobody they mind you.
You get time,
click
oh.
you, say, maybe your hair, no, somebody know like him. What do you want to say? He wants to work in a bank. I said, it's a different matter if you want to work in some other creative space or do something that goes with your looks. But if you want to work in a bank, I want to work.
Not even the general creative space.
Yeah.
You are acting a role, a character that depicts the look that you have gone for.
Look, I want to walk into a bank and look at the banker and be sure that my money will not be taken away by the person I'm giving my money to. If the person I'm giving my money to looks like somebody who is a suspicious character, I won't say, no, I'm being very honest. People make a lot of considerations. I mean, people stop. My grandmother, for example, when she was alive, bless her soul, she can stop a taxi, look at the driver and say, no,
I don't want.
oh dear, I'm no. It's because of a certain upbringing. They can stop another driver and say, quickly, they hop in without even negotiating how much will be paid. Image is everything.
You had time to. The only question I asked was, and this was after the guy had spent like 1 hour. I'm sitting there waiting. The guy is there. Baba is putting some machine through his hair. Even like 1 hour later, I finish. The guy get up. I see. What has changed?
Is this all you did?
Or they use that sponge for that curly kind of effect, or
No.
not that one.
She was just using the machine. Then he would do this. Then he would do shape. Then he would do this. Like some funny things. Kamishes they do. Like 1 hour.
It's touching.
I did that.
It's called
I did
touch.
that.
It's called
And when
touch
he
up.
got up, you said
He
the
got up,
before
I'm
and
like,
after was not too
So
much.
I was like,
different.
boss, you finish? So you go pay? Because the hair you brought in is the hair you are taking
And you know
back.
the funny thing is that they pay the same thing we pay. Really.
But they just want to shape.
So you wasted my 1
Yeah.
hour for
No, I
this.
just want the shape because the style.
Oh.
So I couldn't believe it. And it was not just one person because I was like number 4 in line. And the 3 chaps before me, they all went and it's like some.
Or is it that you people turn
Mami,
old men
boy.
be that?
No, it's not.
No, maybe you turn old man be that all.
No.
Because in your time as well, there were some yo-yo things that your fathers and uncles said,
And do you know where
Afro?
Afro comes from?
It comes from back in the day.
Yes.
It's not a new thing, no.
I look at my dad's picture, the kind of shorts he was wearing in the 70s. I say, hey, beautiful shoe. Then they pull the socks up.
Hot pen.
And I'm sure their fathers were thinking, this is a lost generation. Look at the size of the shorts and the size of the hair. But at least, I think even then, they still imbibe that culture. These days, they don't even find a way to blend it. They've done away with our culture.
You see, when the Achimota Rasta saga came up, I spoke up against it. And I said, look, GS, Nagrat, and all those institutions, they should not be bothered about the hair. I won't have a problem if the hair is nicely done. If you want to keep your dreadlocks, keep it, but keep it nicely. You know, I know bankers who have dreadlocks, who tie it nicely and keep it there. It's all tidy. You enter there, they're wearing their suit and they look good, like what a Samini will do. And then you also enter a place where the guy is supposed to be in a formal space, but the Rasta is all over the place. And you're asking, even the women have tied pony. So you, the gentleman, what business have you? You know, it's a big concern. How we don't seem to, as a society, care about. Charlie, it gets to me. It gets to me. Anyway, it gets to me. Well, but speaking of music, this is Adoma. Listen. This is Gen Z trying to do music, a mashup.
Adoma is a millennial. Yes.
She's what?
She was my junior 1 year in school, so we are family of the millennial stock, but a younger millennial, if you will.
Enjoy.
Yanko
FM, the best in the morning. Sunrise on 3FM, the best in the morning. Sunrise on 3FM, the best in the morning.
All for you, baby, all for you. All for you, all for you. I did wait till you, Papa.
Best in the morning.
I did wait till you, Papa. I did wait till you, Mama.
Sunrise on 3FM, the best in the morning.
All for you, Whoa.
FM 92.7. Sunrise on 3FM, the best in the morning.
Myself.
We'll get back to it. Our AU conversation right now is 8 minutes after 9. Let's talk to Professor Enoch Opoku Entry. Is a governance expert. Also, Dr. Daniel Jamani Kipo Sunyehisi. I hope I got their name right. Good morning, Prof. Good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
Great.
Good morning.
Now, Dr. Daniel, let me start with you. Yesterday was Africa Day. Did it carry any significance for you after 63 years of commemorating this day?
Yeah, sure. It's a very important day. AU Day. It's a day where the Organization of African Union was formed in 1983, and the same organization took a new form of African Union, AU, since 2002. So all member states of AU at least set up the May 25th as a day to remember the struggle of forefathers of the continental body, where their dream was that every African state will be liberated from all the shackles of colonialism and imperialism, all this kind of stuff. So it's a very important day, and it put a hope. At this very moment, we may not.
Now, I want to continue with this on this tangent. You are a research fellow at LISIAD at Legon. Oh, sorry, we lost Dr. Daniel. Please call Dr. Daniel back. Prof, let me come to you and look at the global perspective of this African Union thing. We started from Organization of African Union. We're now at AU since 2002. Would you say that we really are interested in uniting, connecting our resources and our energies, or we're just interested in the paperwork and the show and wearing suit and sipping on coffee and talking big English? What do you say, Prof?
I think the latter is more appropriate than the first. We've been more of paperwork, we've been more of dress rehearsing, we've been more of business as usual, whilst our youth, our citizens, whilst in poverty, go through Agadas, through Libya to try to get to Europe. We've not been able to provide jobs for our people since we formed African Union. We've not been able to trade among ourselves. Currently, we trade among ourselves in Africa less than 20%, whilst Europe do 62%, and America, I'm not talking about North America, also do 50%. So we need to do more for ourselves. But I think the problem of justice for Africa has all been about dishonest loyalty. Because we are the youngest in the world, Africans have the highest number of youth than every other continent. And yet we are not able to harness the youth skill set, be it entrepreneurship, be it any skill to innovate and bring new things to our development. We've also not had good leaders in Africa, which is one of the bane of Africa. And because of that, we've built a culture of dishonesty, corruption, and deception.
Now, Prof, again, the conversation comes on. You may say that the older generation is already damaged, lost and gone. How do we bring along the younger generation? Because they still read about this in their books. I remember I read about OAU in my social studies books. I wrote exams on it in my BEC, in my SSC, and still, it looks like it's business as usual. What can change through our educational system so that the narrative that you talk about doesn't come to stick with us forever and ever?
The curriculum that we currently have talks more about theory. Of course, you need theory to inform the practice, but I think we also need the practice to inform the theory. The way we teach has not been hands-on and evidence-based. That is the biggest problem. And research has shown that every new generation is smarter than the old generation. So whether we like it or not, this generation is smarter than us. They are more computer savvy. They know technology. They know that the world is flat. It's a global village than us. If you doubt this, you have a problem with your phone and give it to your son or your daughter and see how they will handle it. So this is their world, and they will have to change the narrative because there are the older generation. There are a lot of things we don't know, but we don't know that we don't know. And even though we have critical thinking skills, we have ethical behaviors, we follow the norm, These current generation are more entrepreneurial-based generation. And even in America, as I speak, 45% of the citizens hear their first news from influencers. So we should also be thinking about who are influencers. And I have seen a lot of technocrats and academics who are not known in this country. I've been asking the little youth, who do you make your celebrity, or who do you know that person is your mentor? And the names that they mentioned to me, it's worrying. It means that we've not done a good job. All that those they are following are entertainers. So our celebrities, entertainers in this country, it's something we should be pondering about. Who are our celebrities?
Right.
Who are our mentors? And we are not getting the right mentors. And most of these celebrities came from the streets. So what are they teaching our kids? So we should take an introspective effect as a nation and think about, what do we need? And if we need entrepreneurs, then we should churn out entrepreneurs. Nobody is going to, import entrepreneurs into Ghana for us. We need to churn out entrepreneurs. We need to make millionaires among ourselves. We need to do right and say that enough is enough of corruption. If you see corruption, say it. If you hear corruption, say it. We should all be whistleblowers and change the narrative for ourselves. Other than that, we go to school and then we learn knowledge. Tearing information apart about a course, but the wisdom behind it, that to change our world, is lacking. And my conclusion on this is that the orientation is more important than the education we are having, because holistic education means that you need social skills. A lot of people who are great academically, but their social skills are so bad. They don't have empathy. They are not kind. They don't tell the truth. They are mean. They are bullies at work. They want to tell everybody that they are the boss and they leave no one in doubt. These things will not help a nation to develop. We should be open and collaborate.
Dr. Jonathan Asante-Okyere is joining us on the phone line. He's a political analyst and with the UCC. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Johnny.
Good to have you, Doc. We're talking about the Africa Union Day. Yesterday, we commemorated 63rd anniversary of that day. But really, from where you sit, have our politicians done us any good in terms of trying to unify us all Africans?
Well, let me say good morning to colleagues, panelists, and to your listeners. If you look at the situation that we find ourselves, I think that we need to be told that we are very far away from achieving the goal that the independent fighters of yesteryear, and the foundation that they laid. If you look at the geopolitics, we'll appreciate the fact that, in as much as people may have good intentions to develop their countries and to develop this continent, we cannot underestimate the powers of those who are more or less advanced, who have an advanced civilization than those of Africa. And so if you underestimate their role in preventing us from growing to get to where we want to get to, then you are also underestimating your intelligence. In a not too distant, past, or maybe distant past, we all heard of what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah sought to do for this country and for the continent as a whole. So, fast track, we have not been able to ensure that unity. Even the idea of having one single currency for West Africa, so many years ago, it's been more than 30 years. We have not been able to achieve that. Is it ECO or something?
Yes, ECO. Right, ECO. That's right.
We've not been able to achieve that. So sometimes you just don't understand what is happening. Is language barrier another problem that we've probably not averted our minds to? Because if I go to a French-speaking country, that means that the colonial masters, were French speakers, so they have imposed that language on them. I go to a French-speaking country, African country, and it's difficult to communicate just because I cannot speak French. And when they do come to any of the Anglophone system, so language barrier has also militated against that kind of unity. Many suggested that if we are coming together to form a country, then we should take the South African language. What's the name? Is it Swahili or something like that? So we can adopt that one. And you see that the way Africans stick to their tribes and language is not going to be easy for that to be done. So if you go to, but why is it the case that Europe, for example, which is another continent, they speak different languages there, but they are able to advance their civilization to a point where, though, when they go for their meetings, you will see that most of them, if not all, will be speaking English, including the Germans, including the Danish, and all those people. So why is it difficult for us to also adopt one African language to that effect to become nationalized?
Right. Is it that easy? I mean, which country would want to lay down their guard so that another country's language will triumph? Do we go the English way? Do we go the French way? Or do we go the Lusophone way?
Well, the orientation is that adopting English language does not mean that we are going to pander to the whims and caprices of our colonial masters. It should be the fact that people say, other European non-English speakers, other non-English speaking European countries they say that the English language is a street language. Therefore, there is nothing else that can be done, because most people, if not all, understand that language. So we can easily adopt that. That will be a kind of staying away from issues of tribalism or one language being superior to the other. But the English language is a street language, and most people can speak that. So if you look at it from that perspective, we can start from there. We have tried trading amongst ourselves. Unfortunately, we virtually produce similar things without adding value. So every now and then, we are sending the things that we have to other places that they don't have. And so you will see that trading amongst ourselves has always been on the low. And that if, for example, we are to adopt one currency in East Africa, and we are able to trade among ourselves, gradually, that unity that we've been talking about for years will gradually come. And people are too tied to their country of origin more than this perspective of unity. There's that pride in that kind of thing. And so that in itself is also a factor that is militating against the proper unity that we've all been talking about.
Great.
The proper unity should not only be in terms of a concept. It should be a reality on the ground. And that should be backed by economic, indicators. So like if we have one currency that wherever you are going to within Africa and can be used, that is a starting point. That is a starting point.
Great.
Now they have euro. And it didn't start easily for them. But it is now a currency that most European countries are using.
Right.
So Britain got out. I think Denmark too is using their own system.
That's right.
And also, yes.
Let me bring in Prof. Prof, so again, you are the governance expert here. The kinds of individuals that we elect to either manage or mismanage our affairs as individual African countries, would you say that has a bearing on why we have not made progress since we gave unto ourselves this whole dream of African unity?
Yes, to a large extent, the kind of leaders we've had. Do you know that we have Africa is the only continent that we have life presidents? Do you know that Togo here Yasinda Yadima and his son, Fure Yadima, for over 60 years of the independence of that country. It's only one man and his son who have led the country.
That's right.
And our elders say that knowledge is not in one person's head. So if you have just a family, and once we are family or even one country, we have our blank side. That is why diversity is very important. So the kind of leaders we have turned out in Africa have not helped us in uniting. Over 30 years that we've not been able to have this ECO and single passport and all that in Africa. You know that the Sahel, led by the Burkinabe Touareg, he's doing that with the Sahel countries, the few of them. What he's not been able to do for 30 years, within 3 years, he's doing that with the other countries, the Sahel regions. So leadership is everything, and it means that we need to get our leadership right. But my brother said something about language. Language is very key in the way we develop as any nation. Before America chose English as a language, the national language, they had to vote. And those who voted for English beat those who voted for German just by one vote. That is why all Americans speak English now. It could have been German.
I see.
Now, what that means is that if you go to Europe, yes, you have the Dutch-speaking, Dutch language, the Danes, the British, the Americans, one language. It's hard for the national development. But we can also talk about Belgium, which has 5 national languages, which is also working for them. So we can go either way. Instead of having English as a national language, which is okay, but I have a problem with always saying that if you speak vernacular in school, they beat you.
That's right.
That's the problem. But vernacular means language of the common people. So that word alone on our own local languages means that there's a superior language, which is English, and ours is vernacular, which is language of the common people. So we should watch that.
Right. Prof,
our language is...
In wrapping up, Prof, so we're looking for justice for Africa and the Africans. In closing, how should we be marching forward now towards that goal?
We can deliver justice for ourselves. Mandela said that it is not every continent or nation that wish Africa well. Yes, America is 4% of the world population, but they consume 20% of the world resources, 1/5 of it. Where did they get it from? Africa. So the day that Africans will become wise and trade among ourselves and speak our own language and build our own culture, they are doomed. Because we don't need their resources, we don't need their gold, we don't need their oil, we don't need their food, but they need ours. So that is why leadership is key here. And when we talk about justice, we need to deliver justice to our own self. When we had independence and people who had dissenting views were being sent to jail, what happened to our human capital? So I talk about blind loyalty. Blind loyalty is what we are doing. We want everybody to hear us that we are the person. But leadership is your character in action. And our character will always be our destiny as Africans. Let's deliver justice to our own self. Because after over 60 years of independence, we cannot rely on any other nation or any other foreign effort but within ourselves.
Professor Enoch Opoku-Antwi is a governance expert. Prof, thank you very much indeed for spending your morning with us. Earlier, you heard the voices of Dr. Jonathan Asante-Ottoro, is a political analyst. Also, Dr. Daniel Dramani Kipo Sunyezi. He's a research fellow at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. We'll get to talk to our talented kids champions, all right? And then we get to celebrate some birthdays and then some other conversations. But let's hear Osagyefo for a bit. All right, a bit of what Osagyefo said on that fateful day in Addis Ababa, some 63 years ago, the 25th of May, when the Organization of African Union was being outdoored.
Welcome to the Great African Leadership Series, where we feature great inspirational speeches and quotes.
It is my great pleasure to welcome you to Accra and to this conference of African freedom fighters and supporters of the growing movement for Africa's liberation and unity. It is good for our cause to have a periodic meeting of this kind to examine our position